So day 213 of Hey, what are you doing today? It's morning, not early morning. It's about 9:30, and this is the first time where I just want to make the video first thing in the day, because the morning was such an inspiration. Um, One thing that I've realized is, along this path, living in this frame of mind, I'm starting to become a magnet to information. As I seek it, it opens up new doors, and as I practice different things, these things come back to me in some regards. The only way I can really describe it is like being a magnet. Now, 213 days into this adventure. I think I've changed it from a journey to an adventure, because that's what it feels like. I'm picking up pieces all over the place, and I guess the point I wanted to make is kind of to grow on what I was talking about yesterday with awareness, and trying to increase my sense of awareness, trying to sharpen my sense of focus, and I think, as silly as it sounds, for me the easiest way to strengthen focus is to eliminate distraction. And as I'm catching myself being distracted, say I'm reading something, and for me, sometimes when I'm reading something, all of a sudden what I'm reading just kind of turns into words, and turns into this alphabet soup of nonsense. I'm still going through the motion and the action, but it's just a kind of I'm not really retaining anything from it. And when I feel that distraction, I have to pull myself away from it, and concentrate on being focused. And as I sharpen that skill, it's just a simple little thing. There's one thing I've learned along the way is there's so many little things that I can do to sharpen different skills, and it's just a matter of practice, and concentrate. And but that's one of the things that I can do to help with my awareness, is to strengthen focus, and try to eliminate distraction, and be aware of distraction. And that all, it's kind of an interesting cycle that revolves around itself. But the point that I'm getting at is that it's not it's I never know where the next piece of inspiration is going to come from, or not necessarily inspiration, even sometimes just a valid or valuable piece of knowledge. Where is it going to come from? For example, the other night I was at home, and just happened to be an interview. I believe it was Charlie Rose. I wasn't watching it; just happened to be on TV. But Charlie Rose was interviewing supermodel Giselle. I'm not sure how to say her last name. I think it's the first time I've ever actually seen her last name. I believe she's from Brazil, and it's a very unique spelling. And I was kind of lost to looking at it. But just she's someone that's a little outside of my element. I wouldn't naturally seek a fashion model for inspiration, or for good pieces of information. And the interview was just really powerful, really good stuff. And here, just to use that as an example of an unexpected place of as my awareness is out there, I can pick up different things. And here I was, all of a sudden I sat down and watched a little bit of the interview. Just I was overhearing it, and started slowly paying attention to it, and slowly focusing on it. Next thing I know, I was drawn to it. But it was a good interview. Some valid and valuable pieces that were there. And I guess, come back to, yesterday I was talking about the gentleman that had dug graves for 19 years, and kind of the awareness that came from that, the perspective that came from that. And then this morning, actually, well, let me. I'm skipping a step here, because a few days ago I was just listening to something, had something on the radio, and I don't even know what it was, but I believe it was a commercial, and it flashed through, and the guy says something along the lines of, I did a 3-mile run this morning. And when I heard that, it kind of clicked in my brain, like for me, that's a good distance, 3 miles. Oh, sorry about that. A little interruption. But the guy mentioned a 3-mile run. It was kind of a nonchalant, I believe it was just part of a commercial, but it hit my brain, and I was like, 3 miles, that's kind of a good number. And my runs, some of my runs have been longer, but generally, to be honest with myself, I've been doing a mile and a half, 2 miles, somewhere in that range, and kind of concentrating more on speed. Sometimes, there's a give and take with running. But that one little thing just clicked in my brain. It's 3 miles, you know, it's just a good number. And so the last 3 days, because of that one little thing that crossed my mind, it's inspired me to do, you know, three days of 3 mile runs. And it's so funny because I'm on a treadmill. I prefer a treadmill unless I'm actually running from point A to point B. My thing is, I enjoy the treadmill for the meditativeness of it. Whereas if I'm running outside, if I'm not going from one marker to another marker where there's a finish line, a completion, a journey of sorts, the circle kind of bothers me mentally, and I'm not sure why that is. But one thing I've noticed with running is if I run outside and I run somewhere and then run back, the run back kind of creates a tediousness that for some reason sticks in my brain. I hope maybe that makes sense to somebody, but the journey makes a run so much better. If I have to run 10 miles, you know, to a finish line somewhere, or another town or something, that's an adventure, and that's when I enjoy that kind of a run, you know. But retraversing an area kind of affects me psychologically, so I prefer a treadmill. So I'm on this treadmill, and I've got it's in a small little kind of a laundry room, utility room. Not a very big space, but I sit and I face out a window, and I have music playing, all that kind of stuff. But as I'm running this 3 mile run, it's colder outside, and I heat up the room pretty good, giving off the body heat. Next thing I know, the whole window slowly starts to steam up, and then as I get closer and closer, it becomes harder and harder to see out of that window. And so I noticed that the first day. The second day I kind of used that because I don't like to know where I'm at time-wise. I think time has a funny way of playing on a runner's, at least my runner's brain when I'm on a treadmill. So it's best not to know where I'm at with time. It's best to go as far as I can before I check the time. Because once I see that time, that little weight of knowing how much longer I have to go or whatever kind of weighs on me a little bit. So it's better just to avoid thinking about the time side of it. That's a constant mental struggle for me when I'm running on a treadmill, is to eliminate the time factor. But I could tell, the second day I didn't want to look at the time, so I kind of paid attention to how, silly as it sounds, how the window was steaming up, and it wasn't very steamed up. And then as it got farther and farther steamed up, and my neighbor has a boat parked out that I can see from the window, just a small little center console fishing or crabbing boat. And I noticed that it was harder and harder to see. Well, this morning I got on it, and my legs are tight. It's going to be the third 3 mile run in a row. I'm running a little bit faster than I normally would. I run like that, and my legs were tight, and I knew from the get-go it was a struggle. It was a little bit of a push, and I got to a certain amount of time, and the window wasn't fogging up as fast as I wanted it to. In my brain, that was kind of one of the things that I'm watching. And all of a sudden, a piece from one of the novels that I'm reading, or one of the books that I'm reading, this is not really, well, but, and that's, I've talked about it before, and that's Shackleton's Endurance. It's I've a few books that I keep coming back and opening up, bits and pieces at a time. But with the Endurance, yesterday I was reading it, and wow, what an intense part I'm at. They've been on these 3 little lifeboats, just kind of circling around. I believe they're referred to it as the Wedell Sea or Wedell Sea. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's Antarctica, and there's ice flows, and it's night and day, and they're running out of water, and they're freezing, they're frostbitten, and they're covered in water, they're soaking wet, and just as miserable as you can possibly imagine, I would assume. I mean, I have no real way to gauge that, but I can only imagine how miserable it must have been. And nights come over them. They've been awake for, in some cases probably 72 hours. Just all the elements of all the worst things that anybody could probably go through are going on with them right now in some way, shape, or form. And 28 of them. And so they're sitting there, and at one point, they talk about one of the guys on the boat who is steering the boat, falls asleep, and the boat turns sideways and gets covered with a wave of water and wakes everybody up, and you know, to some degree, and just some elements that I wanted to throw out there to recognize the struggle that they had. And they're just sitting there praying for the sun to come up in some way, shape, or form. You know, that one little beacon of hope, that beacon of light, that beacon of warmth, that little bit of warmth that they can get, and they can see what's around them, so that eliminate some of that fear of what's coming, what's going to hit them, you know, what's going on. And as I'm running, as I'm waiting for that wind to cloud up in my own little struggle, which is, I don't want to make any real reference to what Shackleton and his crew are going through. My little 3-mile struggle is obviously nothing compared to that. However, it's still it's a mental struggle and something that I need to overcome. And this little image flashes in my head of these guys in the boat waiting for the sun to come up, and here I am running, waiting for my window to fog up. And there's a little boat out there, and it's just one of those things that was just enough to keep me going, just enough to you know, instead of slowing down the speed, I always give myself, well, I don't always, but I'd given myself that option of, if my legs are too tight, or if it becomes too difficult, I can slow down the speed to a little bit more comfortable speed, and just as long as I complete the 3 miles. But it got to the point where I wanted to finish the 3 miles at the pace I was running, and I wanted to push through it. And that was the thing that got me through, was thinking about Shackleton and his men on the boat just waiting for that sunrise, and my sunrise was the wind is steaming up. So as silly as that sounds, that's one of those little things that, as I'm finding information, retaining information, I never know when that piece of information will become useful. So it's just a matter of taking in as much as possible, and trying to retain as much as possible, trying to remain focused and aware of as much as possible. But it was a good morning. It was just you know, when I finished, it was like just a good feeling, just a good feeling. And I just kind of wanted to tell that story. So that's day 213, just kind of a little story for the day. Hey, what are you doing today? Thanks.